Hello, welcome to the T.chelle Show. I am your host, Torrance Marchil, and I hope that you all are having a wonderful day today. I know that I am. And today we're going to talk about the topic of lust, mainly because I have never really heard it talked about from a female's perspective. I've always heard men, Christian men, talk about their issue with lust and how they deal with it and things like that. And I think that it's obviously helpful to other men who have the same issue and need help overcoming it. But for me personally, as a woman, it just felt like I was going through it alone because I definitely have dealt with lust. And we'll talk about that in a little bit. But I've definitely dealt with lust. And I never felt like other women could relate to it. I've heard like elders, I would consider them elders, speak about it, elder women. And their opinion is always, I put it like this: when you've been healed and delivered from something for so long, you can have a very different perspective about lust and issues like that. And so it wasn't really helpful for me. It kind of felt like I was being condemned a little bit and like I should just know better. And the truth of the matter is, if you don't know better, you cannot do better. And the Bible does speak about lust and how we are to crucify our flesh, right? And that's true. We should do that. But there needs to be a certain level of deliverance for some people. Some people, it may have fallen off of them easily. For me, that was not the case. And so we're going to get into that. But before we dive too deep into lust, I just want to make it clear that lust usually isn't the issue. It's usually a byproduct of a deeper issue. And so for most people like myself and others that I've talked to and others that I've heard talk about this, the very few people, it usually stems from rejection or abandonment, issues like that. And I think this is a bit supported in the Bible as well. If you look at Joseph and how his relationship with his father, he had his father and he was very accepted and loved by his parents. And so he did not he did not let lust consume him. And then on the other hand, you have David, who I'm sure his dad loved him, of course, but you know, he was a last resort. He wasn't even an option when they were looking for someone to be king. David wasn't even an option. So I think this is supported in the Bible that lust typically does stem from rejection or abandonment. It could stem from other deeper issues as well. Everyone is slightly different with the things that we're bound by and how they manifest later. That checks out for me personally because I did not grow up with a dad. I did grow up with a father figure, but that did not come until later. I want to say until I was like age 8. So I'm very grateful for the father figure that I did have when I was growing up. But for that time that he was not there, a lot happened in my childhood. Satan is very crafty with how he plants seeds in people. And so I would say for the first 4 or 5 years of my life, I had a pretty good life. Unorthodox, but I didn't want for anything. I remember being very happy, very loved, very much spoiled. I was like the first everything, the first daughter, granddaughter, grandchild, the first niece. So I was the first everything. And so I got a lot of attention. And so I believe that showed in my personality as well as a child. I was very outgoing. I was very just, I guess you could say life of the party type of personality. And I think I still have that now, but it's definitely not as it was before when I was a fresh child in the world. And so I'd say after about age 4 or 5, I had stumbled across a tape. We know what kind of tape. And this was the 90s, early 2000s. So it was legitimately a tape, like a VHS. So I stumbled across a tape because I believe I was looking for like a movie to watch. And I saw this tape. Now the kids' tapes were orange, if you remember. Because I was watching like Elmo and Rugrats and things like that. And so this tape was not orange, but usually the black tapes were like PG-13 and up movies, like regular movies that you can watch maybe with your mom or dad or something. So I didn't expect it to be anything sinister, but I put it in and I was confused by what I saw. I don't think I was aroused really. I was just confused because I didn't know what I was looking at. And so, I remember being curious a bit later, but then nothing really came of it. Mind you, this will be important. What I did see was happening between man and woman. And so that was my first really encounter with that. But it wasn't something that hooked me in immediately. I was very confused and I thought that the people involved were in pain. So yeah, it didn't really do anything for me. I was curious about what was happening, but that's about it. So then later on, I don't know how much later. Actually, this might have happened first. I can't remember. No, I think this happened second. Anyway, I remember I was with my mom. She was going over a friend's house or something, and she was taking me with her. I don't remember these people. Like, I don't recall ever seeing them before, and I don't recall ever seeing them after this house visit. I don't know who these people were. So, yeah, but like you do at any time when you're with your mom, the adults, they hang out in the front and they talk and they get into their adult conversation, whatever that's about, gossip, whatever it is, right? And you as a child, you go play in the back with other kids. It was only one other kid. It was the girl's daughter. We're in the back playing with Barbies and all these things. And then randomly things happen. And I'll just say she was my first ever sexual experience in life. And I was so confused because I had seen that tape before, I knew what we were doing was wrong. But I was also confused because, when I did see that tape, it's happened between man and woman, not woman and woman or girl and girl. And I just felt very dirty and nasty and violated. But it's like, I couldn't help it. Like, I just couldn't. I couldn't help it. And as a child, you just don't really know better either, which is why I advocate for talking to your children about sex as soon as possible. They understand very early and the do's and don'ts and how to protect themselves and things like that. So I never had a conversation like that beforehand. So I was not really guarded. Maybe if I knew better, I could have stopped it, but I didn't. And so, I don't really even blame that girl. Like most kids, when they act out things like that, it's usually because they're around it and they've seen it and they're just doing what they've seen. And so we left those people's houses, their house, and never saw them again from what I can remember. But I never talked about that. I don't think I ever told my mom about it. Like I have not told anyone about it. I think this is my first time ever really speaking about it. So, because I was ashamed, there's something about speaking about something like that that makes you feel shame. So I continue my life and everything like that. And I don't want to really get into every situation, but there had been multiple other situations after that where, somebody took advantage of me physically against my will. I did not consent to it. I often didn't really know what was happening. I just knew it was bad and that I shouldn't talk about it. And so I didn't. Everything that happened to me, I kept to myself. And so I don't necessarily think I started acting differently. I think I became a bit more, I don't want to say it. I just wasn't as extroverted. I think I still easily made friends and I was still, outgoing. But I think my light started to dim little by little through each experience. And then none of that really hit the fan because, again, these instances typically happen with children. And so there's a level of violation there, but it's not as bad as when an adult does it. Later on, I did have multiple experiences with an adult male for a long time too, probably definitely a couple months. I would say less than a year, maybe about a year, but it was happening and I didn't tell anybody about it because a lot was going on at the time and I was afraid. And again, there's a level of shame there. So this is teaching me, right? All of these things is teaching me subconsciously, spiritually, that I'm not valuable enough to be asked if I want to do something, if I want to participate in something. I'm just a thing here for other people's pleasure. That is what the enemy was conditioning me to think about myself and to feel about myself through these situations that were happening. And also, again, I didn't have a father or a father figure at the time. And so I didn't feel protected. And the enemy really played on that. Like, you don't have anyone here to protect you. No one loves you. Again, a lot was happening at the time. So, he was just really implanting things into my soul and into my mind. And at that time as a child, it lined up with what was going on at the time. And so it wasn't until later when my stepdad came in the picture, a very good man for sure. That's when I felt protected when he came into the picture. And so when he came into the picture, a lot of stuff stopped as well. But I mentioned this a little bit in generational curses. Lust is something that really plagues my family. So even though I wasn't actively interacting with anyone in that way, I was still surrounded by it. I mean, I'm not trying to put nobody's business out, but if you look at my family, if you really know the people in my family and some of our history, you'll see that lust, the devil runs amok in my bloodline when it comes to lust and sexual immorality and perverse sexual appetites. He definitely does and has for years. And nobody's been set free. Anybody living has not been set free that I know of anyway. He's just been having his way. And so while time is passing and I'm not engaging in anything, seeds are already planted. So when the time came, the devil took advantage of all those seeds he planted years before. And so I started to notice when puberty came, when I became a woman, right, so to speak, I noticed that I just was feeling a bunch of things in my body. And if you remember back in the day, if you had like Comcast or something, if you stayed up late enough, there would be like soft corn playing on TV. And I don't think I purposely found this out. I think when you're a kid in the summer, you just stay up late. And I had a TV in my room. And so it was like Girls Gone Wild and a bunch of other stuff on TV. And so I remember this was the summer that I became a woman. I was very just like hot and bothered, And so I stayed up late one night and something was on TV, but it was about like sex workers. It was about that, but it was women. And I found myself very aroused by what I saw. And so it confused me because I'm like, this is wrong. By this time, I know a little something about sex and how it's supposed to be because I'm like 12 or something at this time. So I know a little something about how it's supposed to be and that's not normal, no. And if I was that, I would be ashamed of it because I honored my stepdad as my father. So that's not something I wanted him to find out about me because it would change how he viewed me. And so again, that's that rejection thing there. I really clung to him because my soul was looking for a father, whether I knew it or not, but that's what was happening. And so he played his role very well. So anyway, that happened for a couple nights and I was just so confused because I'm like, what is happening? Because I don't go out in real life and look at women like that, or girls, because I'm 12 at the time. So I don't go out and look at girls like that. I don't find them attractive in that way, but I had this really perverse spiritual appetite, sexual appetite. And so I didn't tell anybody about it, and I didn't even explore that further after that summer because I went on to date boys. And, when I did consensually have, relations with the people that I chose to, they were all men yeah, they were all men. So it's not something that I ever did on my own accord in real life. I've never had a sexual experience with same sex in real life, aside from the first one that was not consensual. But see, if that had not been my first experience in life, I probably would have never developed that taste for what it was. And it was really just like a visual. Saying lies, because this is like a thing. If you go out to the world and ask women what type of videos they like to watch, a lot of them will say it's girl on girl. And they'll say, oh, like, I'm not homosexual, but like, I just like to look at it because, nobody knows our body better than a woman. I've heard that so many times. I've also said that so many times. It's a lie from the pit of hell, but that's just what it is, right? And so that thing never went away, though. I remember there was one summer, it always happens during summer. One summer, the summer before my senior year of high school, I just could feel, I didn't know what it was at the time, but now I know that it was a spirit. And this is how I know that verse in James where it says, submit yourself to God. I'm butchering it, but y'all know what I'm talking about. Basically, submit yourself to God and the devil will flee from you. I usually know how to quote that. I don't know why I'm drawing a blank right now, but you know what verse I'm talking about. That's how I know it's true because I wasn't even really saved yet, but I just kept rejecting what the devil was trying to get me to come into agreement with. And that's why I believe it just never went too far in the physical because he was really trying to make me like a full-blown homosexual. Like it wasn't even a sexual thing. He kept putting things on my mind about being in relationship with women. And I didn't want to do it anyway. But my saving grace was really just, I didn't want to dishonor my stepfather. Because again, I honored him like my father. He was like my everything. Whatever he said went like, he was my person. He was my safety net. I just knew how much shame he would feel if that's what happened. Also because I'm not the first person in my biological family to deal with homosexuality. And so I just didn't want to add to it, So I kept rejecting it. I wasn't even saved yet. So that just goes to show you if you're saved and you keep rejecting what the devil keeps trying to project onto you, he will flee. Because I never had that level of warfare, spiritual warfare regarding that ever again. Seriously. So that summer also, was it that summer? Or it was probably just that year because I was in California at the time for about a year, maybe a little less than a year. I had the opportunity to do something with a grown woman, but I said, no, I'm not going to lie and say that I wasn't curious. But I was like, nah, I can't. I'm not doing that. That's so weird. That's so weird to actually do the things that you see. I just couldn't get with it or whatever. And so opportunities like that came up a lot in my life before I came to Christ. A lot. And I always either said no or it just never happened, right? And so I got saved shortly after, well, not shortly after that. It took a couple more years until I got saved. So when I got saved, the way the Lord called me was he was just letting me know I was living in sin because I was active, but I was active with men. And at the time, my then boyfriend. So he kept letting me know I was in sin. I was fornicating with this man, and he did not approve of that. And if I didn't get right, hell would be my portion. And so I got saved and immediately said, okay, I'm not fornicating no more. I'm not doing none of that no more. It was very hard. It was very, very, very hard. Like, cause I went cold turkey essentially. I mean, that's what you got to do. So it was very hard for like the first, I don't know, month or so. And then, the desires sort of went away. I still lived with the guy at the time. And so, there'd be things like I would be good for 6 months and then end up doing something, never do it again for like another 6 months and then fall again, things like that until I moved out. And so once I moved out, I still had like an itch, but it wasn't just a random itch like before. It was like this person really, I'm gonna put it this way, this person really turned me out, There was never any other parties involved, but just between me and him, things got crazy. Now I have a deeper sexual appetite, with men. And I still had that guilty pleasure, I guess, of looking at women. So I was just a mess. Okay. I was just a lusty mess. And so again, at this point, I'm saved. I've been saved for a few years. And again, I got saved in like 2017. I didn't get free. I didn't get set free, like for real, from lust until this year, 2024. And it's because I just got like, I don't know, God had to really refabricate my mind. And so what he did was he dealt with rejection first, because that's where it stemmed from. He said, okay, yeah, you're doing all these things and you have all these different appetites. You got a lot going on, but that is a byproduct. We have to deal with the actual issue. And so we spent a lot of time dealing with rejection, and he healed me from that. And so once I understood I'm accepted, not rejected, by God. And I understood my identity in Christ. I viewed lust differently. So, okay, yeah, the flesh may like it, but I don't like it. And my mind, because I'm in my right mind now, at least pertaining to lust and sex, that's beneath me, like to be sitting up here and giving my body to people who are not my husband, just willy-nilly and being selfish. We're both being selfish, participating. I don't value you. I'm demeaning you by doing this, and you're doing the same to me. We're just sitting here. We're just two broken people engaging in this activity, and I'm no longer broken. So I can't even do that. That doesn't line up with who I am now. Mentally and in my soul, I viewed sex differently, but I still had to be delivered from lust as well, because I still had night visitations. I still had it just needed to be broken off of me. God called me to him for a little bit, and I made sure to tell him, like, God, I have to be delivered from this. I don't want this. You don't like it. I don't like it. It doesn't line up with your word. It doesn't line up with who you call me to be. But this is a real issue that I've had for a long time, and I just want to be free. And so he did just that. I can't even tell you how it happened. I had my time with him, just me and him. We were at scripture, and he talked to me, and he told me that he wanted me to spend that time with him for deliverance. And so he did just that. But he delivered me from so many things at once that I can't even tell you like the exact, I just knew I was delivered. I'll just put it like that. I just knew I was free. And once that time with him was up, I noticed how differently I felt. I felt so free and liberated, and still do. I realized how I used to look at men versus how I look at men now. Before I looked at, I was like a man. I was like a lust-filled, horny man walking the streets. It was so masculine. It's like now that I have eyes to see, it's so masculine, because I saw men and attractive men as objects for my enjoyment. I looked at them like, if he looked halfway decent and he had a nice physique and he had on the right clothes, the gray sweatpants and all that, my mind was already there. Like, yeah, I wonder what that would be like. And I wouldn't approach them like that, but that's what I thought in my mind. I would look at men as objects. And because a lot of them in the world, they like that. So it was like, I didn't see anything wrong with it. But now that I'm free, it's like, how could I have looked at people from that perspective before? That's crazy. It really is. Now I look at men and I just see them as a person with thoughts and feelings and emotions and value. You have value just like I do, whether you know it or not. You're a person. And I'm not even into that. Like, I'm not even into that. I want it in the right context with the person that God has for me. This is also how the Lord really got that lust off of me. I couldn't remember before, but I can remember now. So during the time with him, he had me read a lot of different scriptures, but he led me to Song of Songs, which is so random. I feel like that's not a book most people just read for fun. I knew like what it was, but I never read it before in its entirety. So I read it. It's an easy read. You can read it in like no time, less than an hour. So I read it and, it's a little racy. It's a little erotic, but it's in the right context. And so reading it, I was like, gosh, should I be reading this? Because like my issue, but because it was not perverse, it did not arouse me. What I did was I looked at it and I said, this is beautiful. The way the man talks about her beauty and her body, it's not in this weird, perverse way. You can tell that it's done in the right way, the way God intended for the man to look at his soon-to-be wife, because it was leading up to their wedding day, I believe, in the book. But I just thought it was so beautiful. And the way she viewed her man the way she viewed her man, and she kept repeating, I am his and he is mine. It was beautiful. Literally, I had never seen not just sex, but just intimacy in that way before, because sex is a part of it, but intimacy doesn't have to be just sex. But it was beautiful. And I'm like, it's like reading that took all that off me. It just completely changed my mind. Like, God was already refabricating my mind before that, but that was the nail in the hammer, or the nail in the coffin for me. Once I read that, the lust was gone, because I had been made new in my mind and in my soul. This is how I view it. And this is exactly what I want with my husband. I want this level of intimacy and love and admiration and attraction for me and my husband when it's time. I don't want anything but that. I'm not demeaning myself by giving my body up to people who don't value me. I'm not going to sin against God anymore. I'm not going to sin against myself. The appetites were gone. The how I used to view people before was gone. I have a new perspective. I have a new mind. I've been made right. And I'm so grateful for it. Seriously, I really, really am. And so if you are dealing with this as well, if you have dealt with lust issues, addictions, sex addictions or corn addictions or anything like that, leave it at his feet. Like, go to God and leave it at his feet. Seriously, he will, but you have to really be done with it though. That's why I didn't get delivered before, because I had asked God for many, many, many years to deliver me and to set me free, but I wasn't really ready. I wasn't there yet where he could do that. And so now, when he did deliver me, he said, you're ready. You're ready. Spend this time with me, just me and you, daughter, so that I can get all this debris up out of your soul. I want to make you new. I want to make you clean. And I want you to know that you're new. I want you to know that the old has passed away and all things have become new. And I was so grateful for that. I'm still so grateful for that. You know how free it feels to not be bound by lust? I can go out in real life and see people for who they are. I've never really looked at women in real life and felt any way about them. Again, it was just like this weird guilty pleasure that I had before. But, women are women. But I can look at an attractive man and know that he's attractive, but I don't feel anything for him, And I noticed I was free. Probably about a week ago, I follow like weight loss content creators and fitness trainers and things like that. So there's one guy I follow. He's an attractive guy, but I don't, look at him like that, right? But he posted on his story one day that his gains, basically, he just wanted to show off his gains, what he'd been doing in the gym. And so I looked at that picture and I immediately said, okay. No, I didn't say, okay. I said, ooh, but this is a different type of ooh than before. Before, I would have said ooh because I felt something in my flesh towards him, whether it be, it's not necessarily arousal, but I would have felt something towards him in that way. But this ooh was like, it was like, okay, because like, yeah, you put in the work and you're showing off your gains and you're proud of it. I'm proud of you too, because I'm doing this like health and fitness thing too. So like it lines up with where I am right now. And so once I noticed that there was a difference in my reaction at that point, than what it would have been like a couple weeks prior. I was so grateful. Like, it's like, you're free, but then you can also see the evidence later. And it just makes you feel so much better. And it makes you really want to fight harder to stay free. And that leads me to my next point. How do you maintain your deliverance? Because you have to maintain your deliverance. But I think I'm not going to say easier to maintain your deliverance, because that's still a fight in itself. But when you are only really fighting the flesh, and the demons are gone, it's like different than being like oppressed. Like the demons are in you and you're still fighting your flesh. It's like, it's a different type of battle. You still need Jesus for it every day. Trust me. I need Jesus every day to stay free from a bunch of things, not just that. But, I know my limits. I know what I can look at and what I can't look at, what I can be around, what I can't be around. Like, I can't watch movies, not with sex scenes, but like suggestive scenes, any heavy kissing and heavy breathing and all that stuff. I can't look at it because I'm not going to make provision for the flesh. I'm not even going to give the flesh a little, because you give the flesh an inch, it will take a mile. And then when you do, the devil right there to take advantage of that. So I was like, nah, I can't even look at that. Again, like I said, I watch, fitness content, things like that. If a guy is in the gym and he's panting too hard, gotta cut it off, or like fast forward to a different scene or something. Because I'm not even about to let my flesh, I can't do that. So I don't look at certain things. I don't like to hear certain things. Even like some relationship stuff, I don't even look at, because it only takes a little bit for your mind to start wandering. No, I guard my ears and my eyes with what I look at and what I listen to. I don't listen to you shouldn't listen to any suggestive music anyway, but it happens sometimes, I guess. And so I steer clear from anything that could take me back there in my mind and in my soul, because I can't be bound up again like that. And so that's pretty much what I had to talk to you guys about lust today. I definitely shared a bit of my life. Look, I'm not ashamed of nothing, but I understand that for some people this can be a bit much. But that's just what this is. You come to Christ a dirty creature, but he cleans you up, And so I think from here on out, I'm going to be sharing a lot more things like this, not necessarily about lust, but I'm just going to be keeping it real with what things are in the spirit. And, I pride myself on transparency. That's what I want to offer. And I wish I had this a little bit more when I was going through some of the things I was going through before. And so I'm going to offer that here for the people who listen to me. I hope whoever hears this, some people can relate. They've been delivered, so they can relate. Like, yeah, that used to be me, or I had a similar story, or whatever the case may be. Or if you're currently going through this, you can be free. I promise you can be free. You got to be done with it though. Like, you have to really be done with it and seek the Lord on what to do next. Some people, they may not have to consecrate no time with the Lord because they weren't in it that deep, right? But like I shared, this thing has been plaguing me since I was a child. And not only me, but it runs amok in my biological family. So, it's no surprise that I dealt with it like how I did. I hope this was helpful and edifying and encouraging to whoever needs it to be that for them. And I'm very, very, very glad to share my testimony with you all today. So I'll leave it at that. I do have I already said this, but I just want to make sure I plug this in every episode. I do have a new Instagram strictly for the podcast. So go follow me there at the T.chelle Show on Instagram. That's where you'll see behind the scenes content and just clips and things like that. And it's also another avenue for discussion. So go ahead and follow me on Instagram at the T.chelle Show. If you want to follow me personally on Instagram, you can find me at Torrance Marchil. There's no podcast stuff really there, but there's just more of me. And right now I am doing 2 series simultaneously, like a health and fitness series and then a self-love through Christ series as well. So if you want to see that, check me out there on my personal Instagram. You can also find this if you're listening on like Spotify or anything like this, or if you're listening to this on YouTube, you can find this podcast, Spotify, Apple Music, Amazon Music, all of that. Wherever podcasts are, you can find this podcast. And if you're on Spotify or any other platform like that, you can find me here on YouTube as well. Here on YouTube, I talk to the subscribers on the community tab. So if you want to keep up with me there, you can subscribe to me on YouTube as well. So I hope you guys enjoy the rest of your Wednesday, or whenever you hear this, I hope you enjoy the rest of your day. I bid you adieu. I'll see you in the next one. Bye.